What would I have done if I were calling the shots for the Buffalo Bills in the 2025 NFL Draft? I'll tell you that today on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino, author of the Herd Mentality Substack, co-host of the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast, co-host of the NFL First Read Podcast, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. Want to thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day, and a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, I appreciate y'all being here very, very much. I'd also like to invite you to subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This episode is brought to you by the Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Turn any TV into your Xbox, no console needed. Head to amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to learn more. Well, folks, welcome in a tradition like no other. I, along with Bruce Nolan from the outstanding Bruce exclusive podcast, we are going to go toe-to-toe with Bills general manager Brandon Beane, and we're going to tell you what picks we would have made versus what Brandon Beane did in the 2025 NFL Draft, which is risky business. It's been a week since this draft is unfolded. Everyone's taken the time to fall in love with this draft class, and here we are. We potentially are going to shake things up. Bruce, thanks for coming and being on this hill with me today.
Thanks for having me, Joe. I always think about this when the time comes to have this conversation every year. I think to myself, this is really just a bad PR move on my part because there's never any comments that really hit you as badly as they hate you after the draft when you go, I think I'd do something different, because really that is when hope is at its absolute peak for NFL fans, right? Everybody has digested the class. They've come to love it. It's like, not even the day of the pick where you can capture people like when they're grumpy about it. It's a week after when they've, I've connected myself to the Hopium IV. I am good to go. So we are bold, and we will boldly step into this once again together, my friend.
Bruce, we've been doing this every year since 2020. This is going to be the sixth time you and I have done this together, which I think is unbelievable. First of all, that we've both been podcasting for this long. A lot of shows don't make it that long, but together we have decided to continue to do this. And look, we have our hits and misses along the way, just like Mr. Beane. So let's do it. We're going to go pick by pick. We will tell you who the Bills picked, obviously, and then what we would change or stick with it. And so, Bruce, you are the guest. I'll ask you this. You are the guest. Do you want to go first? Do you want to declare if you're going to stick with Maxwell Hairston, or would you like me to go first?
I think I would like you to go first. This is your podcast. It's your home. I'm going to defer to the host.
Well, listen, I thought that was my way of being like cordial, was saying like, as the guest, you could go first, but maybe you didn't want to. So I'll do this. All right. So round one, pick 30, the Bills selected cornerback Maxwell Hairston out of Kentucky. I am actually going to stick with the pick. Cornerback Maxwell Hairston out of Kentucky. The way that this board fell in real time, and let me go ahead and clarify this, we get to do this in hindsight. So we are going to make the picks at the exact spots that the Bills did, and we will insert the players that we want versus what Brandon Beane did. And the benefit for Brandon Beane is that he has all the info. He gets to meet these people. He gets to talk to people around him. The benefit for us is, well, hindsight. So I think that somewhat levels the playing field out. So I am going to stick with Maxwell Hairston. The way that this board fell on draft night, the defensive tackles went. That was kind of the thing I was targeting in the first round. And you know, Mason Graham at 5, Kenneth Grant at 13. Next thing you know, you get Walter Nolan gone, you get Derek Harmon gone, and it's like, all right, we're out of here. This is not going to be a defensive tackle situation. I've always said I thought the strength of the draft was the edge rusher situation. I felt comfortable waiting on that, and it became a situation where corner made the most sense to me. And Hairston, I think, is the best zone corner in this class. I love how he's aggressive, how he hunts the football, and I love the athletic profile. So that way, if the Bills want to play in some tighter alignments, they want to play more man coverage, you got a guy that can mirror and match. But I also love how he pairs with Christian Benford. He's a guy that Christian Benford can handle the bigger bodied guys, and Maxwell Hairston can match up against the twitchier, quicker, more explosive guys. I love the complementary skill sets. I love the ball skills, and I'm sticking with Max Hairston with this top pick.
That makes a lot of sense to me. I think one of the things coming out of the draft that we talked about, and I actually talked about on the show this week, was that if you really break down and get to the level of the grain that the Bills defense struggled with last year, it wasn't just, it was a defensive struggle. It was specifically a pass defense struggle, and markedly on 3rd and long. And you get a player like Maxwell Hairston, who is incredibly well suited to off coverage. And you think, okay, if anybody can close those windows and have that not be a problem anymore, it's that kind of player. It makes a ton of sense for me as to why you would stick and pick.
This is only the second time in 6 years I have stuck with Brandon Beane's top selection. I won't tell you when the other time was, but this is only the second time.
Yeah, we're not going to go there. Not going to do it this time. So for me, I did not stick and pick. I did not go chalk
with the corner.
I did not even with the corner. I know, I'm so disappointed in myself, but
who are you?
I don't even know who I am anymore, truthfully. I'm Ron Burgundy.
So I know what you did. The corners fell. You took the corners. Oh, you're not. That's not a bad idea. I respect it.
That's exactly what I did. So for me, I like Maxwell Hairston. I have concerns with the physicality for sure. And it's not just I know that the conversation has always been he had a shoulder injury. Yeah, but we're watching 2023 stuff. And that there was stuff that I had concerns about with bigger body receivers, whether he was going to get pushed around a little bit there. I took Donovan Ezeraku, Boston College edge rusher right there, who ended up going to the Cowboys. I don't think you typically get players with this skill set at this section of the draft. I think I had him ranked slightly above Maxwell Hairston. I thought he was a first-round prospect, ended up going to the Cowboys at the 12th pick in the second round. And it fits something that I think they thought they were getting with Von Miller, in that long-armed, bendy, agile player who gives you something that you thought you were going to get there and it didn't work out, right? So I'm taking another swing at this skill set that the Bills thought they were getting. I think he's a mature pass rusher. I think it's not just he's bendy. Like, it's not just that. There are multiple moves. You actually see, ironically enough, the patented Von Miller ghost rush from Donovan Ezeraku. And there's a good arm over. There's a skill set there that's mature and it's differentiating amongst Buffalo Bills pass rushers. I went Donovan Ezeraku, edge rusher from Boston College.
I think he's got the best pass rush repertoire in the class. I respect the move. Now, what I'm really fascinated to see all the dominoes here, because I think this sets off the whole thing. Like, everything is going to be different for you based on this, which is totally fascinating, and it's exactly why this is fun. So I went first on the last pick. I stuck with Max Hairston. You go Donovan Ezeraku, the edge from Boston College. Now, we don't get to choose this, but Brandon Beane traded up to number 41. So we are picking at 41. Buffalo selected defensive tackle TJ Sanders out of South Carolina. You're up.
I'm sticking and picking with TJ Sanders. I like TJ Sanders. I thought there was a very reasonable chance that he was a high second round, maybe even sneak his way into the back half of the first round player. I think that if you line up all of the positives and negatives of TJ Sanders, and then you go to the negatives column and you go, okay, I wish he was a little bigger. And that's about it. Like what else do you not like about TJ Sanders? Yeah. Okay. Maybe the frame isn't quite as broad as I'd like it to, if you're going to try and play him inside at, on the outside shoulder of the center. Okay. Probably not feeling comfortable if I'm in an odd front and I want to put him at nose tackle. Okay. But I know that there's a lot of 3-4 teams that probably would have really liked him as a 5-tech. And I think he has the versatility to be able to do things like that. But for me, TJ Sanders is a type of player that I think if you put 5 pounds on him, I don't think that there's an extension problem or a 2-gapping problem. I mean, everyone thinks, okay, he's a 3-tech, and you immediately think, oh, he's a penetration pass rusher. And he is. That's true. But the run defense is real with TJ Sanders. The run defense, the use of extension, the ability to shed, and you think to yourself, okay, I don't just have to line him up next to Ed Oliver on long and late. Like, that's the only time TJ Sanders is going to see the field, is either spelling Ed Oliver or lining up next to him. Like, I'm completely comfortable on 2nd and 6 putting TJ Sanders next to Ed Oliver. Like, I'm completely fine with that. So I don't think the idea that because he's not a traditionally true 1-tech, somehow he's not going to get enough snaps to make it worth it. I don't think that's the case. I think highly of the skill set. And I think that the skill set is well-rounded enough that there's not going to be an issue getting him snaps and getting production from him. I went TJ Sanders.
Yeah, this is the pick that I've come away from most excited about. I like a lot of the selections that Beane made, but I didn't think this was the profile they were looking for at D tackle. And so that would put him a little bit off my radar. I thought he was always a good fit, but I was like, is this what the Bills are looking for? I thought the team would be looking for a bit more of a traditional nose, but the skill set is really, really exciting. And when you can like separate, okay, the perceived type of player they were going after and just appreciate the player for what it is, there's a lot to love about TJ Sanders, and I'm sticking with him as well as the Bills' second round pick at number 41. So I'm chalk through 2 picks, Max Hairston and TJ Sanders. And Bruce is at defensive end, Donovan Izaraku out of Boston College, and TJ Sanders out of South Carolina with his second round pick. All right, folks, we're going to get to the 3rd round, 4th round, all the picks here coming up next. So, folks, be sure to stick with us. Did you know that your Fire TV is also an Xbox? You can turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe, or sign into Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to go. You can dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty Black Ops 6 and Avowed as easily as you stream your favorite shows. It's gaming made simple, and it's all in your Fire TV. Plus, the entertainment options are endless. With 4K streaming, you can watch more than 1.5 million movies and TV episodes from your favorite subscribed services such as Netflix, Prime Video, Disney Plus, Max, and more. So head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max 1st and 2nd Gen, and Fire TV Cube 3rd Gen. My guest today, Bruce Nolan from the Bruce Exclusive Podcast. You can find that wherever you listen to Locked On Bills in the audio mediums. Make it a priority for you every Thursday. It's one of my favorite parts of the week is getting to hear Bruce's takes on whatever's going on. It's always a unique delivery. And you've been in your bag, man. You've been in your absolute bag here for the last few months. I've been enjoying the content that you've been putting out, just like I have for however many years. 6-7 years now you've been going?
Yeah, 6 years. I can't believe it. Wow. I still have the mic that I started with because in my head, I'm like, well, it's a temporary thing. I'll upgrade my mic when I get to be a veteran. Here I am 6 years later. I still haven't upgraded my mic.
It's unbelievable. Congrats on a great run. And we're glad. I mean, last year I went back and listened to our episode, and last year at this time, we were wondering what was going to be next for you, where you were going to land. And we're glad that you're back. You're like almost a year back, and it's been awesome to have you back in this space. And of course, for the 6th time doing this with me. All right, we are moving on to the Bills' 3rd round pick, number 72. The Bills selected defensive end Landon Jackson out of Arkansas. It was destiny. This guy was always going to be a Bill. And I'm sticking with it, Bruce. I'm chalk through the first 3. I know. And if you look at the history, I really haven't been this guy. I really haven't. And maybe that'll tell you, how much I really do like what Brandon Beane was able to get done. But I came into this draft, I said, there's 3 big boxes to check: corner, D tackle, D end. And I like how Brandon Beane did it. I think Jackson's a really clean scheme fit. And I think that style of end, the power, compression style, play through angles type player pairs well with the direction of this interior group where you're going to see more penetration style guys. And I think power on the inside, power on the outside, penetration on the inside is going to give you a lot of opportunity to be creative with your looks. And I think Landon Jackson's a really tailor-made fit. I didn't think he'd be there at round 3, pick 72, but I think that speaks to the strength of this edge class and how guys were probably available a little bit later than normal. And I think that's the Bills are a beneficiary of that to get Landon Jackson. So I'm sticking with it. 3 for 3, Bruce Nolan.
Yeah, don't let the dalliance with Von Miller and Javon Solomon change the idea that truthfully every organization, when it looks at their D line, they typically have one of 2 philosophies, which is power and compression on the inside and speed and bendiness on the outside, or they have power and compression on the outside and penetration on the inside. And make no mistake, the Buffalo Bills have been the latter of those 2 philosophies. And Landon Jackson totally fits that. We saw it with Gregory Rousseau. We saw it with AJ Epinesa. Then all of a sudden, they kind of took a left turn and went like Von Miller. They went counterculture, Von Miller and Javon Solomon and Leonard Floyd. And you're like, oh, okay, is something evolving? Nope. Going back to right where they were. This is the idea. And you saw in the interview that that Sean McDermott did with Ty Dunn, he was talking about, again, going back to what he knows, right? The Carolina defense from those years when they were really good. That's exactly what they looked like, right? With Star Lotulelei and Vernon Butler and KK Short. Yeah. And they were the penetration players on the inside. And then they had power rushers, Mario Addison, right, on the outside. And that's what they believe philosophically. Landon Jackson totally fits that. Again, destined to be a Bill.
Well, you went defensive end in the first round. I don't think you're going to stick here. What are we doing?
I am not going to stick here. Azareye'h Thomas, Florida State cornerback, and you knew it was coming. So I got the same 3 positions, but in a different order. So Azareye'h Thomas, not the athlete that Maxwell Hairston is, because let's face it, there's not a lot of people who are the athletes that Maxwell Hairston is, right? But long and physical. I think he gives you the benefit of helping you in the quick game, against the quick game, the way that Hairston does. And he has the length to disrupt. So I think he can help disrupt from off coverage, but he does it in a different way. Hairston does it with athleticism, and Azareye'h Thomas does it with length and physicality. And so I do think that there is a little redundancy with the Christian Benford set. And that's something that you highlighted, where having the complementary skill sets with Maxwell Hairston and Christian Benford is beneficial. This is a little bit more of a redundancy, but I will say that Azareye'h Thomas is a better press man corner than Hairston is. So if you wanted to play a little bit more press, I think you could get away with it at this point. I think that it's fascinating to me having the Jets pick him, because I think about Aaron Glenn, and of course I think about all the man that they played in Detroit, and I'm like, oh man, Azareye'h Thomas he's gonna fit like a glove there. So not thrilled that he went to a division rival in such a good fit, but Azareye'h Thomas is my pick here at, goodness gracious, what pick are we at now?
72, third round 3. Yep. What's interesting about what you've done to this point is you did take advantage of the corners sliding.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good play. That's a good play by you. And this is where it got hard for me, is this stretch, because the Bills go this pick at 109, and you can only pick one player at 109. And then you have this big gap to 170. And in that stretch of picks from 109 to 170, so many targets that you would have loved for the Bills go. And so I think this is where it really gets interesting for me, because we even had like a text exchange today where it's like manipulating this in this spot to get the value you're looking for at certain positions became very, very difficult. So I'm always, of course, interested in those top 3 picks. This is really where I get excited to find out what you did. So you're up round 4, pick 109. The Bills went with defensive tackle Deone Walker out of Kentucky. Bruce, what are we doing?
Torrey Horton, wide receiver. We're going to make it happen right here, Colorado State. So for me, it's not about the meaningful investment in the receiver. It's about the skill set you're getting and the cost at which you're getting it for. So there's 2 reasons why I wanted to draft a player. The first one is the price of receivers has gone through the roof over the last 2 years. It's more important than ever to make sure that you're drafting them. The second reason is it's not just about wide receiver, but the Bills put themselves in a strange position. It's about the type of wide receiver. When you decided to pick Keon Coleman and kind of lock yourself into Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman as kind of your top-ish, younger, we're going to develop them on a rookie contract sort of receivers, you end up bringing in Josh Palmer. There's still a question of verticality, and the Bills knew this. They signed Marquez Valdez-Scantling after the draft last year because they knew they had a verticality issue. The problem is you can't solve for it if the player you bring in to solve for it is never on the field. So if your wide receiver 6 is your vertical guy, you don't have a vertical guy because he's playing special teams or he's inactive. Like, it needs to be a guy who can come in and compete at least at wide receiver 3. So for me, it's a Torrey Horton. I think he's an excellent fit in Seattle. I think that is fun. I mean, Cooper Kupp, who knows at that point, right? So we're an inch away. I mean, Jackson Smith and Jigba is going to continue to eat people's souls out of the slot. And so Torrey Horton has an opportunity, right, to show pretty early on what he's got. And I think he's the type of player, I think he's an upgraded version of a player that we were all talking about last year. So, Joe, we're going to have this conversation. Wide receiver, played with the quarterback that you drafted in Dynasty and ended up, he was playing at Oregon, ended up going to the Broncos last year. People thought maybe he was a day 2 guy. He fell. You know who I'm talking about?
Yeah, Troy Franklin.
Troy Franklin. I think Torrey Horton is an upgraded version of Troy Franklin.
Yeah, he's bigger
And
too.
So I think that gives you that vertical skill set. Very, very productive. I think it's not just a burner. I think he's a savvy route runner. Can struggle with physicality, but I think you could play him from the slot and get vertical slot to get him free releases. I think it's something you could do. And I think that he has the skill set where you could bring him in and say, okay, you don't have to be on the field, 60% of the snaps, but you could be on the field enough for us to actually be able to make an impact with that verticality. So for me, it is Horton, wide receiver, Colorado State.
Nobody push play on this podcast to hear us talk about the Seahawks, but I would like to add a thought here because the combination of Torrey Horton and Elijah Arroyo at tight end, and I think Elijah Arroyo gives tremendous verticality from the tight end position. That really makes a lot of sense when you think about Cooper Kupp and Jackson Smith and Jigba as kind of their primary weapons. I think they've done a good job adding those guys to that offense. All right, for me, round 4, pick 109. The Bills pick defensive tackle Deone Walker out of Kentucky. I'm sticking. No.
You had to. You absolutely had to.
I couldn't even get the word sticking out. I couldn't even try that. But at least I had to try. I had to try to make
now. It's going to be.
I had to make the joke. Bruce, you know who I'm picking here?
Who are you picking?
Wide receiver Torrey Horton, not a Colorado.
There we go.
No, this is where it got hard, man.
Yeah.
Like all the receivers went, and it makes you understand the position that the Bills are in when they got to 170.
Absolutely. Totally know why they didn't draft somebody. Totally get it. Right.
Like it was here or it wasn't going to happen outside of, Kaden Prather at 240. So this was like the guy that I thought gave the verticality, but also the punt return aspect I think is big. Over 16 yards per punt return for his career, 3 touchdowns at Colorado State. And I think the depth at receiver for Buffalo needs to help on teams. And and you can apply this to Elijah Moore as well, who the Bills just signed. Elijah Moore has only had 4 punt returns in the NFL, but had 76 of them in college. And if your wide receiver 5 is Elijah Moore, if your wide receiver 5 is Torrey Horton, and they're also your punt returner, it means a lot because now you have special teams impact out of your receivers, but also it means Brandon Codrington's get bumped off your roster. And Codrington is exactly. So now because Codrington's only become a punt returner only. He doesn't play corner. He can't. And he also doesn't cover kicks and punts, and he's also not really the kick returner anymore. And so now you can roster another corner that can actually help you on teams, and that helps you offset that you're really only getting one special teams player out of the receiver position. So I think there's a balance of the roster that you get with Torrey Horton, in addition to the vertical elements that, I think the Bills receiver core has been lacking. That's fun. I was wondering what you were going to do about receiver, and we had the same idea. All right, we are off to a fun start here. We've got rounds 5, 6, and 7. We've actually got 5 more picks to work through. We'll do that here on the other side of it. Folks, be sure to stick with us. All right, Joe Marino, Bruce Nolan going toe-to-toe with Brandon Beane, telling you what we would do in this 2025 NFL Draft. We're now on to round 5, pick 170. The Bills selected Ohio State defensive back Jordan Hancock. I guess it's my turn to go first. I really like Jordan Hancock. I really do. I love the idea of him. Versatility at safety, in the slot. He tackles, coverage versatility. I think he's going to be a good teams player. But I'm not sticking and picking here. I am going to go with interior offensive lineman Miles Frazier out of LSU. I had him graded much higher than this. I had him graded in the 3rd round. I don't really understand why he fell. Part of it is just value. I think he's just a really good value pick. Even with Torrey Horton, I had a 3rd round grade on Torrey Horton. So I get good value here. And I get myself in a position where a guy that I thought is a 3rd round caliber prospect, which means I think you have starter appeal in a situation for this Bills offensive line where you got 3 problems. Not immediate problems, but they're coming. Connor McGovern, your center, he's an expiring contract. Your starting left guard, David Edwards, expiring contract. And Osiris Torrance is going to be expensive. He is trending towards a very expensive player to keep at guard. And this gives me a guy with a ton of tools to have as a hedge. At a minimum, I have a nice depth player. And if any one of those guys goes, which I'll be honest with you, and they probably won't all be here for the next 2 years. I got a player right here to go with a lot of this developing depth to make sure that this offensive line remains firm. And I think it took Brandon Beane a long time to get the guard stuff figured out, and I'm not ready to go back. So we're going to go ahead and get Miles Frazier right here at pick 170 instead of Jordan Hancock.
That makes a ton of sense. If you think to yourself, hey, this guy profiles as a future starter versus this guy profiles as a guy who can do a little bit of everything and provides us depth, assuming there's no special teams like tiebreaker between the two, it makes a lot of sense. So I have a similar feeling to you, but I addressed it later in the draft. So it's interesting to hear you say that because like, hey, IOL was a sneaky need, right? Need doesn't always mean now. Need can mean really important, but not now. Right? If you think like the Heisenberg matrix, right? Urgent and important, right? It's really important. It just might not be super urgent, but that doesn't mean we don't need to address it. So for me, when I look at this, I think, okay, that makes a ton of sense in the world.
Well, thank you for thinking I knew what the Heisenberg matrix is.
Yes.
Just casually saying that. I mean, that's listening to your podcast. I got to push pause and whoa, what is he talking about? What is this? So you just did that right there. But thank you for thinking that I knew what that meant because surely everybody does.
Obviously, normal stuff, completely normal.
Totally normal things. All right. So Bruce Nolan, the Buckeye fan, are we sticking with the Buckeye?
We are not sticking with the Buckeye. We are making up for the fact that I didn't take a second defensive tackle and I didn't take Deone Walker. I'm taking Tim Smith, defensive tackle, Alabama. This was the last of the, I'm comfortable with him as a rotational one tech, the last one. So it was a little bit like the Torrey Horton pick in the sense that if I don't get him now, I ain't getting him. Mm-hmm. It was the exact same way. It was Tim Smith, and then the entire bottom fell out of the entire draft for me. So he was my final ranked, I think this guy can come in and compete at one tech. And this was the opportunity where I need to get him. So I don't think that this would ever be a player that would fit the Bills' criteria for the type of player that they want, right? He is violent and heavy and a little bit of a plotter. And that is not something the Buffalo Bills have historically wanted in any of their defensive linemen, right? That's just not their thing. But, but for me, when I think about picking people up and I think about shedding and I think, I want power, I want pop, I want the ability to control a space, the ability to let other people do the dirty work, right? People talk on the Alabama defense that Tim Smith did the dirty work, right? To let other people do what they need to do. To me, that's a valuable player. I feel differently about that than this regime has historically valued that position. And if I don't take him now, I'm missing my opportunity. I'm taking Tim Smith at Alabama.
Well, Bruce, spoiler, I never got to my defensive tackle double dip because I couldn't get there. All of the players I would have picked went between 109 and 170, and then I couldn't get the receiver. So because I had a defensive tackle in hand and Sanders, I had to take the L here. It's the most disappointing part of this draft that I put together is I don't get the defensive tackle double dip. So I say that to say that I respect you doing it right here because it's the empty part of what I was able to put together. Go ahead.
It's weird because you were chalk so early that now all of a sudden you get to this back half and I suspect you won't be as chalk. This, for the back half. And then I was very not chalk for the first half of this draft. I think you might think a little differently about the back half of the draft when we get there.
Okay. Well, you're up next. It's round 5, pick 173. The Bills selected tight end Jackson Hawes out of Georgia Tech. Your plan, Bruce.
As I may have just alluded to, I'm chalk, right? Jackson Hawes to me is maybe my favorite pick in the draft. And the reason is it's so clean of a projection.
Yeah.
Like it's so rare where you look at someone and go, oh yeah, no, I know exactly what I'm going to get. I know exactly what role he's going to fill. I know it's going to be meaningful. I know we're going to love him. He's going to do his job. I don't even worry about it. Like that doesn't happen very often. Like there's always these concerns and there's this weird like vibe you get in your, oh man, I hope he's good. And all this stuff. It's like, imagine to me a world where Jackson Hawes is not a good TE3 who comes in and serves a purpose in run game, in blocking, in being able to feel comfortable sealing the outside edge in like wide zone and things like that. You're like, I can't even fathom that. Like in my head, the idea that he's not going to be a good player who's like of value to this offense for the next 4 years is like unfathomable. And that's the reason why you go chalk here is because I can't imagine a future where he doesn't come in and do his job. Now you can have a separate argument over how valuable that job is, but I think it matters. So for me, sticking and picking Jackson Hawes.
Yeah, it's a big identity piece of what the Bills are as a run scheme. And, I'm sticking and picking with Jackson Hawes as well. This is not one I'm changing. So there's my pick. The only thing I would add to your analysis is that we're expecting more kick returns. This guy's going to matter there too, as in addition to the tight end 3 role that we all understand within the offense. And I think he's so important in preserving what you want this offense to be if either Kincaid or Knox gets hurt, because you have the inline player. If Kincaid goes down, you feel comfortable enough for Knox to go flex out and do some of that stuff. If Knox gets hurt, then you still have the inline player. I think he's it's really important for the structure of the offense to have a player like this. So I think he's the dream tight end 3, and I'm not changing that. I'm also not going to change round 6, pick 177. The Bills selected cornerback Dorian Strong out of Virginia Tech. And I had a 3rd round grade on Dorian Strong, cornerback out of Virginia Tech. So I'm not changing this one. I like the double dip. And even with the veterans that the Bills have brought back, I just think really highly of Dorian Strong as a guy across the board. Whatever I need him to do, zone, off-man press, tackle, play the ball in the air, run support. Like, he's going to do all of those things. He comes in with a special teams profile. I don't think this guy had any business being there at round 6, pick 177. I'm sticking with it.
I'm also sticking with him. This is getting really boring real fast here. We both went chalk the last 2 picks. If you'll notice, I took 2 man corners with Azareye'h Thomas and Dorian Strong. If that tells you anything about the type of thing I want to see, I want to see more versatility in coverages on the back end, and I want to equip the ability to do that. So Azareye'h Thomas and Dorian Strong are the guys. I agree. So I also had a late day 2 grade on Dorian Strong. I mean, he's not an amazing athlete. Is that it? I mean, like, I know his shorter arms, but like, you watch him play and you think to yourself, if anybody's maximizing the arm length, it's Dorian Strong, right? And so for me, I get it. Like, I was a big Martin Emerson guy coming out, right? I was a huge Martin Emerson guy. I think somebody, Lance Zierlein maybe, I think comped Dorian Strong to Martin Emerson. And I was like, oh yeah, I see that. Like, I get it. And for me, if you have multiple players who can line up in man, it really changes the dynamic of what you can do on defense. And I just want as many options as humanly possible on the back end. And I need players to get me there. And he's one of those players. Yeah.
And the Bills have had to use corner depth, right? It's important. And I think this really solidifies it with a cost control player for 4 years. It's going to help on teams. I'm very satisfied with the pick. That was an easy one to stick with. All right, 2 more picks left. Round 6, 206. The Bills selected UConn offensive tackle Chase Lundt. Bruce, what's your plan?
I am sticking. And I am sticking for the 3rd pick in a row for exactly the reason you talked about earlier. I think Lundt's a guard. That's the reason why. I know he's tall, but I think he's a guard, right? I think his movement ability is impressive. And I think that I can see a vision where you look at a Buffalo Bills offensive line coach and Aaron Kromer, who has done really, really well with people who move well, and think to yourself, okay, like, you think about some of the things about generating power through the bottom half and how getting your feet right and all those things that he harps on in these classes and he harps on these drills that he goes through. And you think to yourself, man, he's going to love Chase Lundt. He's just going to love him, because at this back half of the draft, what I'm looking for people who are really only here because of one weird flaw that I feel like I can live with. And for Chase Lundt, obviously it's arm length, right? And so I think, hey, if I can rectify that and just move him inside, like, what an opportunity I have. And so for me, I'm thinking about Lundt. I'm thinking about his movement abilities. I'm thinking about all the multiplicity that the Buffalo Bills want in the run game, right? They've really become multiple in the run game over the last year or so. And I think, okay, if I trend toward a universe where you get this guy in the building, you work on it a little bit, super experienced guy, you develop him. This is a guy who could, I think there's a starter in there somewhere. And so I want to bring him in the building, have him work with him, and say, hey, do we feel comfortable if we lose an interior offensive lineman that we can do Lundt? So for me, that's my spot.
I like the selection of Chase Lundt a good bit, but I am not sticking with Chase Lundt. I'm going to switch it up here, and I'm going to go with punter Jeremy Crawshaw out of Florida. I think he's the best punter in the draft. He was the only one that got drafted, so I think that was probably a consensus take. And he actually switched like 3 years ago from like the rugby style punts to the more traditional, and his numbers exploded 23 years old, and he's a really good athlete for a punter. And so the Bills have this competition between Jake Camarda and Brad Robbins. I think Brad Robbins was the worst punter in the NFL in 2023 comfortably. And, he didn't get a chance really to come back. He got injured and then released and wasn't punting for anyone else in 2024. And then Jake Camarda, a 4th-round pick, 2 good years as the Bucs punter. And then his 3rd season, he gets released for performance and then really never gets another shot. I think the Bills have 2 potentially interesting punters, but plenty of concerns. That doesn't move me off of picking the best punter in this draft. So I'm going with a punter here out of Florida, Jeremy Crawshaw. Last pick here, round 7, 240. The Bills went with wide receiver Kaden Prather out of Maryland. We both picked the receiver earlier. I'm curious if you double dip. I'm not going to double dip. I'm going to go in a different direction here. I'm going to pick a player that wasn't drafted. We're going to get ahead of it. We're going to get linebacker Sean Dolak from Buffalo. I think a lot of people thought this guy was a shoo-in to come to Buffalo. And I'll tell you what, I kind of felt that way too. But if there was one other spot that made sense, it was the Rams. Yeah, there's not a lot of teams out there that would really go for this body type at linebacker, but the Bills and the Rams are. And the Rams have been, I think, comfortably the best team in the league at getting production out of UDFAs and late round picks. And so I get it. Smart move for him. If it wasn't Buffalo, go to the Rams. And maybe he felt some type of way. It's y'all could have drafted me and you didn't. So I'm going there. I don't know. I'm making that up. But point is, I'm not going to let him get to undrafted free agency. I'm going to get him right now. And here's the thing. I think he's going to be a good special teams player. You don't really see coverage players like this. That's the best thing about Dolak is coverage. It's rare ability. And, there's translatability against, MAC competition, whatever you want to get into. That dude can cover. He had good ball production for 2 years to the degree if he was a DB, you'd say it's good ball production. This guy's doing that linebacker. We're going to go ahead and pick him right here at 240.
I took Sean Dolak.
Yeah, I felt that with how I was.
My notes say, I swear I'm not pandering. Right there at the top, it says, I swear I'm not pandering, but I'm taking Sean Dolak. For all the reasons you just said. I just said in the back half, I want someone who's only here because of one glaring flaw, right? Mm-hmm. With Sean Dolak, it's you line him up and you go, okay, he's small. Is that it?
That's it.
He's small. It's the same thing with Chase Lundt. You're got short arms, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing, right? So I want to take people who have one massive glaring flaw in their profile because that's the reason they're there. And for me, it's Dolak. It's not just hey, he's a Buffalo guy and all that stuff's great. Yeah. But Matt Milano, is he going to be a Bill in 2026? And okay, I'm happy with the development of Dorian Williams. Maybe the Bills feel like he can step in and be the guy in 2026, and that's awesome. But now everybody needs to step up one more spot. And so the Buffalo Bills linebackers have historically, you saw what they did a couple years ago because they were overcorrecting to the fact that they had to call, Jim Smith off his couch, right? To come and, AJ Klein was wearing, Mickey Mouse hat, right? When he got the phone call. And he's like, oh, okay, what? I'm a football player now again? Oh, cool, I'm a football player again. I want to avoid that happening, especially in a linebacker-centric defense. So for me, let's stock the cupboard. Let's bring him in. And no, it's not just he's a fun story because the University at Buffalo guy, because I think he's a legitimate player who can help you on teams right now and can develop into something, especially in a defense that doesn't penalize him for his size. So for me, I'm taking Sean Dolak.
Bruce, I want to sneak in a question here because this is in line with the Dolak thing. I'm really surprised, literally nothing's happened at linebacker. The exact same 6 players that finished the year on the team are still there. They've added sort of a linebacker as an undrafted free agency. This is a little bit interesting. Is the piece of this that we might be sleeping on is that Michael Hoyt maybe allows the Bills to go a little bit lighter at linebacker. Maybe they typically roster 6. Is Hoyt kind of the X factor here where they feel comfortable maybe rostering 5? It's fascinating to me. I'm literally no movement at the position.
Yeah, to me it was Hoyt, and they like Balen Spector more than I do.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
It was those two things to me. And because I had a linebacker in every mock draft that I did was get me a backup linebacker who can come in and play teams. I was okay, day 3 is here. Where do I find my linebacker who can come in and get teams? And as you start to digest it, I think a lot of people just kind of forgot that Hoyt existed because of the suspension. Like, you have to kind of remind yourself he's on the team, because
Mhm.
you're not going to get a chance to see him being deployed in that hybrid role. That was one of the big perks for him when you were kind of putting up your banner of, oh, what does he bring to the team? And the answer was hybrid versatility. And so maybe that's something where they feel comfortable. Hey, look at all these times we wanted to go base, but didn't really want to go to base defense. Maybe we feel more comfortable if that guy is Hoyt.
Yeah, I'm fascinated to see it. All right, here's the hauls. And Bruce, I'll ask you for a thought on how this played out here, but I will remind everyone of the hauls. You know what Brandon Beane did. I went Max Hairston, TJ Sanders, Landon Jackson. I switched in the 4th round. I go wide receiver, Torrey Horton out of Colorado State. In the 5th round, interior offensive lineman, Miles Frazier, tight end, Jackson Hawes, cornerback, Dorian Strong. My last 2 picks, punter, Jeremy Crawshaw, and linebacker, Sean Dolak. For Bruce, shakes it up early. Donovan Izaraku, the defensive end from Boston College, in the 1st round. TJ Sanders, we stay there, but then with the 3rd round pick, Bruce goes cornerback Azareye'h Thomas out of Florida State. He follows me with Torrey Horton out of Colorado State, the receiver. We both pivot from the Deone Walker pick. Instead of Jordan Hancock, Bruce goes defensive tackle Tim Smith out of Alabama. He sticks with Hawes and Strong and Lundt, and then we both go Sean Dolak over Kaden Prather with that final pick. So you've seen the classes. You did this for yourself. What did you learn in doing this? And do you have any takeaways on what I put together?
The first thing is, I completely understand why the Bills didn't take a receiver. And I don't think that the criticism of, hey, you didn't pull the trigger on a receiver, should probably be as strong when you try and do this yourself. Like, I think trying to do this yourself will change things. We had the only reason, let's be very, very clear. The only reason why Torrey Horton got picked where we picked him is because we had the benefit of knowing what was going to happen.
Yep.
Otherwise, we may have waited in real time. We may have rated and going, listen, Dante Thornton's going to be there, right? Someone's going to be there. But the answer is no. Nobody was there. After the 4th round, all the way, Isaac Tesla, I mean, the Detroit Lions gave up 3 threes in exchange for getting Isaac Tesla. Like, now all of a sudden it's like Jameson Williams, maybe. Like, they put up so much of a significant investment that it's making you question how they feel about other players on their roster. For Isaac Tesla, a guy that we had all assumed was an at best early day 3 guy, and now all of a sudden that class of receivers that was late day 2, early day 3, right? They all soaked up really early. And you thought that was maybe 1 or 2 stragglers. Nope, no stragglers. So I think the criticism of the team for, hey, you didn't draft a wide receiver, go try and do this yourself, right? Without taking like a massive reach at 41, for example, and just see how it works out for you, because it got really sticky real fast. The second thing is that I think that your draft lines up with philosophically what the Bills cared about. I think you rearranged it, but you kept, I think it's a Beane philosophy with a Marino execution. That's what it feels like.
That sounds dangerous
from a flavor to me. And I think that that's probably something that if you pitch that to Beane as like the assistant general manager, he would see the vision, because the vision's aligned. My vision's not aligned. Like, I did a couple things here, most specifically with Izaraku and also with Tim Smith, that flat out Brandon Beane's not going to pick those players in those spots. He's just not going to, right? It's a departure of philosophy because of what we talked about earlier with the combination of power inside and speed outside, or power outside and speed inside. And they've made their preferences very clear there, and I went in a different direction. So I think philosophically yours aligns better with what would jive in that building.
I think I'm most jealous that you were willing to play the board a little bit more at corner, where, I mean, a lot of the guys that we were talking about, if the Bills were to trade out of the 1st round, they went right in that Thomas, like Savone Revel went right there. Jacob Parrish went a little bit later than I thought he would. There's Darian Porter was right in that range as well. And I think that was smart of you to lean into that. And I mean, Izaraku is a guy, I said this before, like if he went to the Bucks picked, where it's at 20, if he was the Bucks pick at 20, would anybody have thought twice about it? You would have been like, that's a great pick. And then he goes to Dallas in the 2nd round. So I think you probably did a better job than I did of being willing to work with the way it actually unfolded and take advantage of that. Or I was just so satisfied with these first 3 picks that I didn't really want to shake it up. I will say it'd be nice to have 109 and 132. I think that changes that would have changed the entire complexion of what I would have done with my picks. But it was traded. So that's kind of the consequence of moving up to 41. I don't know if TJ Sanders would have been there at 56. I have no idea. But I do think that threw off the balance of like in your mind how it was going to play out.
I think you're right. I think that I think I leaned into the benefit of hindsight more than I have historically done. But hey, he's got his benefits when he drafts and I've got my benefits when I draft. And so it's not really a fair fight, but we're going to try and make it one as much as we possibly can.
Round 7 in 2026, Bruce, looking forward to doing that with you. Thanks for coming along. There's, I don't know how many people are willing to do this, and surely we're going to get some negative feedback, but if that's the way it is, that's the way the cookie crumbles, right, Bruce Nolan?
Absolutely. That's the way the cookie crumbles. And it is a tradition unlike any other. And I hope we continue to do it for a long time.
All right. Me too. Thank you to everyone who listened to this. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope that you'll come back. As always, I kindly ask that you share, subscribe, rate, and review. Have a great rest of your day. Go Bills. And I look forward to catching up with you again real soon.